Remember when people were genuinely worried that XRP might sit out this entire market cycle? I never bought into that doom and gloom. It was pretty obvious to me that the only thing holding XRP back last cycle was that artificial price suppression from the SEC's relentless attack. Once that legal cloud started lifting, it was just a matter of time. Then November rolled around, the election results came in, and boom, XRP absolutely crushed it. That settled the participation question once and for all. Next up was the big milestone we'd all been waiting for, breaking that all-time high. And sure enough, January 16th delivered exactly that. But here's the thing. It was just barely nudging past that old $3.35 peak, almost like it was testing the waters. We needed to see it really break free and start exploring uncharted territory. Well, we got our wish when it pushed up to $3.65 in recent days, officially entering price discovery mode. Yeah, we've seen a bit of a pullback since then, but that's just the entire crypto market catching its breath. Nothing XRP specific. The real excitement is still ahead of us. This is what we've been patiently waiting for as XRP holders through all these years of frustration, the face-melting phase of price discovery. That's when XRP potentially rockets into those absolutely wild, seemingly impossible price ranges that we've always believed were within reach. And honestly, I still think that's exactly what's coming. All those years leading up to this moment, we had no shortage of people saying XRP would never amount to anything. But now, the idea of XRP hitting double-digit prices this cycle isn't some wild fantasy anymore. It's actually within the realm of possibility. Look, I'm not here making specific price predictions because that's just not what I do. But for anyone speculating about $10 plus XRP this cycle, that's not crazy talk anymore. We're in completely different territory now, and the fundamentals have shifted dramatically. I'm telling you, we're about to witness the face-melting phase everyone's been waiting for. All the pieces are falling into place, and based on historical patterns and current momentum, it's happening very soon. The setup is just too perfect. There's actually one XRP chart analyst who thinks we could realistically see $4 to $5 before this month wraps up. And get this, we're already at July 28th as I'm putting this together. It's currently 3:06 a.m. Central Time on Monday morning, so we're talking about just a few days left in the month. I'm telling you, we've been spot on about everything so far, and XRP's fundamentals have never looked this solid. It couldn't be more crystal clear that XRP is emerging as one of the early winners in the crypto space. And honestly, I think we're going to be proven even more right as this plays out. But before I dive deeper, let me be totally upfront. I don't have any financial background whatsoever. I'm definitely not giving financial advice. And you absolutely shouldn't make any investment decisions based on what I'm saying here. I'm just someone who genuinely enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto as a hobby. It's fun for me, nothing more than that. Right now, as I'm recording this, XRP is sitting at $3.27. We actually looked like we might be gearing up for another little run just a couple hours ago. XRP climbed up to $3.32, but then Bitcoin took a small dip, and Ethereum followed suit, basically dragging the whole market down a notch with it. Bitcoin's currently hanging out just above $119,000, but honestly, I think that's going to absolutely rip higher too. Here's chart analyst Crypto Wizard sharing something pretty interesting, a chart showing Tether and USDC market dominance. His caption is simple but telling, "Let it flow." He's pointing out exactly what we want to see happening right now. Tether and USDC dominance has pulled back and dropped significantly, just like he predicted. And here's the key part. He's saying, this decline isn't finished yet, which translates to one simple thing. Altcoins are heading higher. When stablecoin dominance goes down, altcoins go up. It's that straightforward. Looking at this chart, when he posted this Sunday afternoon, the market dominance for these two stablecoins had dropped to just 5.9%. Compare that to the peak back in 2023 when it climbed up to around 15%, maybe even hit that 16.5% wick you can see on the chart. Either way, it's been absolutely plummeting from those highs. And that's exactly what you'd expect to see as we get deeper into a bull market cycle. What's really happening here? People are moving their money out of stablecoins and putting it to work in other assets. Absolutely, stablecoin dominance naturally decreases as we move toward the end of a market cycle. And that's exactly what's playing out right now. The trend is moving in precisely the direction we want to see. What makes this even more exciting is that this is happening right as Bitcoin dominance starts to crack. throughout crypto history, that's always been the recipe for alt season. That's just how these patterns have consistently unfolded. Look, I'm not claiming we're already deep into full alt season territory at this exact moment, but wow, the signals are definitely flashing. There are some pretty unmistakable signs emerging, and we're going to break down all of them in this video. Here's another update from Crypto Wizard, this time looking at Bitcoin's chart. He's calling this the final wave delivering, and mentions that people got too bearish too quickly. He's been warning about this final wave, and sure enough, Bitcoin smashed through $110,500 and launched into price discovery mode. But here's the thing, he doesn't think it's done yet, not even close. He's targeting $131,500 as the final peak for this cycle, and says we should just wait and see. Now that price target is actually pretty conservative compared to a lot of other analysts I keep tabs on. It's right in line with what someone like Blockchain Backer has been saying. I've heard him mention the $130,000 to $135,000 range for Bitcoin on multiple occasions. He's not making any guarantees, but that's his general ballpark, and honestly, he could be spot on. What's interesting is that these are actually some of the more modest expectations I'm seeing from the chart analysts I follow. Most of them aren't going crazy with sky-high predictions. They're keeping things relatively grounded. But here's the beautiful part. Even hitting those conservative targets would be more than enough to trigger some absolutely wild price action for XRP. And frankly, I'm hoping Bitcoin does go even higher than that, because the more money that gets pulled out of Bitcoin at the peak, the more capital flows into the rest of the crypto space, including straight into XRP. He's highlighting something really interesting in this chart. The patterns we're seeing now look almost identical to what happened before, especially back in 2017. It's got that same samey feel to it, and he's convinced we're about to see that final parabolic push higher. Honestly, I'm hoping the analysts calling for 150,000 to 180,000 Bitcoin peaks end up being right instead of the more conservative crowd. We'll all find out together how this plays out, but here's what I know for sure. The higher Bitcoin climbs, the more money is eventually going to pour into XRP when people start taking profits. That's exactly why I pay attention to Bitcoin's movements and track these patterns. I'm not watching it for Bitcoin's sake. I care about what it means for my altcoins. Sure, I've been holding some Bitcoin since 2017, but my real focus is on how this impacts my alt positions. And I'm betting that's true for most of you watching this too. Look, the real opportunity for life-changing wealth in crypto this year isn't coming from Bitcoin. It's going to come from altcoins. I'm not saying Bitcoin can't be worth significantly more over the long haul, but right now, it's not even close to being a competition. Large cap altcoins have been crushing Bitcoin's performance, and I believe they'll keep doing exactly that. Here's a post from Blockchain Backer focusing on Ethereum, and I'm bringing this up because Ethereum has historically been the catalyst that kicks off alt season. I've been saying this for months. Ethereum is far from dead. I was practically screaming it even when ETH dropped down to around $1,400. And you know what happened? The lower the price went, the more clueless people started claiming it was finished. They'd come up with all these ridiculous explanations for why Ethereum was supposedly done for. But here's the thing. The fundamentals never changed. When you see price dropping while the underlying fundamentals stay the same or actually get stronger, that doesn't signal death. That's typically not what happens when an asset is truly finished. And man, was I ever right about that. Ethereum just hit almost $4,000 just a few hours ago. We're talking about a massive move from that $1,400 low all the way up to nearly $4,000 in recent hours. That's the kind of performance that shuts up all the doubters pretty quickly. Blockchain Backer was highlighting this action Sunday afternoon, pointing out that ETH had climbed back above the 70.2% retrace of its 4-year range and was sitting just 6% away from $4,100, which has been acting as continued resistance since early 2022. This is exactly why I've been saying we're about to enter XRP's face-melting season, the best season that's ever existed and ever will exist. The confluence here is just incredible. Everything is lining up perfectly. You've got stablecoins behaving exactly how they should, Bitcoin doing its thing, Ethereum making these massive moves, and XRP itself is positioned absolutely perfectly for what's coming next. I'll dive deeper into XRP's specific setup later in this video because there's so much to unpack there. But from a historical perspective, I know exactly what happens next. XRP absolutely melts faces. That's just the natural progression we're heading into. When you see Ethereum pushing up against that multi-year resistance at $4,100, you know what's coming. And don't even get me started on global M2. It's been absolutely rocketing higher. Bitcoin typically lags behind M2 by about 12 weeks, so you can connect the dots on what that means. Remember analysts like Raoul Pal saying we weren't going to have a boring summer? They were spot on. Bitcoin jumped back into price discovery mode, XRP smashed through to new all-time highs, and hit $3.65 just days ago, and altcoins across the board are going parabolic. This is exactly what you'd expect to see right before we dive headfirst into full-blown euphoria mode. Everything looks identical to previous cycles. It's just cyclical behavior repeating itself. And that face melting phase, it's coming, whether people are ready for it or not. Here's another post from Blockchain Backer about the total crypto market cap, and this one's from July 23rd. Remember that day when the market was absolutely bleeding? Or have you already wiped that from your memory? Because we're talking about just a few days ago here. He called it a decent red day, and man, did it feel brutal to a lot of people at the time. But he had the perfect read on it. He said it looked like nothing more than a back test after breakouts, basically just wiping out over-leveraged traders. And guess what? He was absolutely right. It was just a standard back test following a breakout. Nothing more dramatic than that. Fast forward to his updated chart from yesterday, July 27th, and the picture looks completely different. He's highlighting that BNB, Binance Coin, just hit new all-time highs, pushing above $850. This is exactly the kind of action you want to see happening. Individual coins starting to pop off and hit new peaks before we get the full-blown alt season. That's a really encouraging sign. When you see these types of moves happening across different assets, it's usually setting the stage for something much bigger. There are just too many things falling into place exactly how you'd want them to for this not to be a clear signal. Everything is pointing toward what's highly probable, face-melting season for XRP. He wraps up by saying that BNB's new all-time highs and Ethereum's continued march higher are giving us glimpses of optimism that the recent pullback was simply a backtest of the total market cap's all-time high. And honestly, that's exactly what it's looking like right now. Here's chart analyst Mustache breaking down total 2. That's the crypto total market cap minus Bitcoin, covering the top 125 coins, which obviously includes XRP. He's pointing out something massive here. Total 2 has reclaimed a trend line that's been in play for 8 years and is currently retesting it. His take? There's no more bullish scenario than this. He's calling Q1 and Q2 nothing more than a huge fake out, and he's telling everyone to watch their altcoins absolutely fly in the coming weeks and months. And you know what? I absolutely will be watching, and I won't be the least bit surprised when it happens. When that moment comes, I'm going to be going completely ballistic with excitement. I'll be in pure euphoria mode myself. If you think I sound pumped up now, just wait until we really get rolling. This is exactly what I've been waiting for all this time. The vindication we've experienced so far has been incredible, and I know so many of you listening feel exactly the same way. We've all been in the trenches together, grinding it out through all the doubt and negativity. You're feeling that vindication too, that yes, obviously we were right all along moment. But we both know the real payoff we've been waiting for is still ahead of us. The face-melting phase, that's the ultimate vindication that we as XRP holders have earned and deserve. Here's the great Matsby dropping some pretty significant news. We just witnessed the highest weekly candle close ever for the total crypto market cap. Let that sink in for a second. Sunday marked the weekly close, and it was literally the highest weekly close in the entire history of the crypto asset class. I mean, come on. Could the writing on the wall be any clearer that we're about to see things get absolutely insane? It honestly couldn't be more obvious if it tried. When you're hitting historic weekly closes like this, you know we're not just in some regular market cycle. We're heading into territory that's going to be completely ridiculous in the best possible way. Here's chart analyst Crypto Insight UK looking at XRP's price chart, and this was from Sunday morning before we got the weekly close. He was pretty clear about what he wanted to see happen. He said if XRP could get the weekly close where it needed to be, not going to lie, we look strong AF. The minimum target he was hoping for, that $3.20 level. And get this, he's got the bigger picture mapped out too, with targets sitting roughly between $9 to $15 for the peak of this move. That's the kind of notable burst he's tracking, but it all hinged on seeing continued strength. So did we actually get that close he was looking for? Absolutely we did. Chart analyst Zoom confirmed it just 3 minutes after the weekly close, which happens at 7 p.m. Central Time for crypto charts. He called it a healthy retest for XRP and noted the price was sitting around $3.23 at that time. That's exactly the kind of close Crypto Insight UK was hoping to see, and honestly, it's a really encouraging sign for what's ahead. So a few hours back, chart analyst Javan Marks dropped some exciting news about XRP. It's been holding strong above that $2.47 target we were watching, which means we're now looking at $4.80 as the next milestone. Here's what's really caught my attention this past week. I've been seeing tons of chart analysts all pointing to the same thing. XRP could be gearing up for some serious moves in the short term, with predictions hitting $4, $5, or even higher. And honestly, when you see this many respected analysts saying basically the same thing at once, that's not something you ignore. In my experience, when multiple credible voices start echoing similar predictions, especially about price movements like this, there's usually something real behind it. These folks don't typically all jump on the same bandwagon unless the setup looks genuinely solid. According to Javan's analysis, XRP still has about 44% room to climb before hitting that $4.80 target. But here's where it gets really interesting. If it breaks above that level, we could be looking at the next target around $7.13. And from what he's saying, this might happen sooner rather than later. Chart analyst Xforce Global just weighed in, and guess what? He's saying XRP is getting ready to hit $4 pretty soon. This is exactly the kind of consensus I keep talking about. He mentions we're likely in the most profitable phase, what he calls Wave 3. Now, I've noticed most of the analysts I follow are actually saying we're in Wave 5. But honestly, I don't want to get too deep into all those technical details. The only reason this wave stuff might matter to XRP holders is because it helps predict when we'll see that final big push of this cycle. So yeah, timing-wise, it's kind of interesting to think about. But here's the thing. For regular folks like us, does it really matter whether we're in Wave 3 or 5? Not really. I'm happy to let the analysts duke it out over those technicalities. What I actually care about is this. How many solid, reputable analysts are all saying XRP is about to explode upward? And right now, we're seeing a ton of them saying exactly that. In my experience, when you get this kind of widespread agreement among credible voices, they're usually onto something. So while they might debate the technical waves, they're all agreeing on the main point. We're going to see some serious action. And for us, that's what really counts. So chart analyst Crypto Bill Boo Boo just dropped a post, and yes, that's actually their name. They're talking about getting ready to expand our bag at some key Fibonacci levels, specifically the 1.5 and 1.618 targets. Now here's where things get really wild. That 1.618 level they're talking about, we're looking at over $26 for XRP. I mean, I know that sounds absolutely crazy, but hear me out. What really caught my attention is that chart analyst XR Punky actually reposted this and called it the XRP roadmap. The fact that he's backing this analysis suggests he genuinely believes these numbers are within the realm of possibility. Chart analyst XR Punky just shared an update about XRP hitting a nice weekly candle back test in what he calls the red zone. He posted this around 7:40 p.m., about 40 minutes after the weekly close, so pretty fresh analysis. His take? Things should get pretty bullish heading into this new week. But here's the exciting part. He's hoping we might actually close out July somewhere in the $4 to $5 range. Fingers crossed, right? And get this, he's saying he's even more bullish for August. That would be absolutely wild if it plays out. As we're getting closer to the end of July, I'm starting to feel like this kind of move is becoming more and more realistic. Maybe we'll hit those targets in the next few days, maybe we won't. But here's the thing about crypto that people sometimes forget. Right now, we're sitting below $3.30, but jumping up to that $4 to $5 range, that's exactly the kind of crazy, fast-moving action crypto is famous for. Those wild, seemingly ridiculous rips that leave everyone's head spinning. And here's what makes this even more believable. XRP has pulled off moves like this multiple times over the years. It's not remotely crazy when you look at the history. Chart analyst Greg Crypto just shared some fascinating insights. He's pointing out that XRP still needs to beat that $3.65 macro target we've been watching. But here's where it gets really interesting. He's identified what looks like a bullish pennant formation on the charts. According to his analysis, If this chart pattern plays out the way he's seeing it, we could be looking at XRP rocketing all the way up to $17. Now, he's been super clear in his previous posts that this doesn't necessarily mean it has to peak exactly there. He's just showing us what this particular formation is suggesting if it unfolds as expected. And honestly, that's not even crazy when you think about it. Can you imagine how absolutely life-changing that would be for so many people holding XRP right now? I'm telling you, there has never been a better time to be part of the XRP community. I genuinely believe that with everything I've got. We're going to find out what happens pretty soon, but one thing couldn't be clearer. The best is definitely still ahead of us. The excitement is building, and all these analysts are painting the same picture from different angles. Of course, I've got to throw in the usual reminder here. I'm not a financial advisor, and you definitely shouldn't make any buying or selling decisions based on what I'm saying. That would be a really, really bad idea. Always do your own research and make your own choices.